For decades, one man has dedicated his life to fighting for human rights. From Holocaust survivors to the forced organ harvesting of Falun Gong, human rights lawyer and Nobel Peace Prize nominee David Matas is hunting for justice. Crowds gathered over the weekend in Toronto, Canada to honor his efforts. Let's take a look.
Somebody from the Chinese police called him and asked me this question: what you're doing is putting your life at risk. Are you not afraid?
Recognizing what David has done in many, many fields. And we can never do that enough to thank the people who take a risk and are prepared to go where others won't.
The Justice Hunter, a moniker worn well by David Matas, a Canadian lawyer with a private practice in refugee immigration and human rights law since 1979.
He's an exceptional human being and human rights lawyer, and his commitment to human rights is just endless.
Early in his career, David was dedicated to the tribulations of the Holocaust survivors. His grandparents were Jewish immigrants from the Ukraine and Romania that escaped persecution in the early 20th century.
I got started basically with dealing with the issue of bringing Nazi war criminals to justice, which I started in the 1970s. And I also got started with doing refugee work, where the victims, of course, the refugees were victims of human rights violations.
And he was passionate about the cause of Holocaust survivors and the cause of Holocaust, the people that suffered from the Holocaust, and all the people that were led into this country, as you saw in the film.
In 2010, Mr. Matas and former Edmonton Member of Parliament David Kilgour were nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize for 4 years of investigative work into organ harvesting practices in China. In addition to the 2 reports they published, Kilgour and Matas co-authored Bloody Harvest, the killing of Falun Gong for their organs. The book details evidence that tens of thousands of Falun Gong practitioners had been killed by the Chinese regime in the process of stealing their organs for transplant surgeries.
It all started back in 2005 when a patient of mine who's been on the top list for heart transplantation in Israel approached me and told me, "Doc, my insurance company told me to travel to China and they have scheduled heart transplantation for me in 2 weeks' time." And I looked at him and asked him, "Do you listen to yourself? How can anyone promise you a heart transplantation ahead of time? You know that for heart transplantation, somebody has to die on the very same day, and there's no way to schedule such an operation ahead of time." He told me, "I don't know. That's what my insurance company told me." And sure enough, the patient went to China and got his heart transplantation exactly on the day promised.
Nobody wanted to believe a country could kill their citizens. Nobody wanted to believe something like the Holocaust could happen today. And they didn't want to hear about it. And they didn't want to take the chance of reporting it. Very similar to the Holocaust. Same rationale. And the Chinese government had tried to dehumanize people that would allow them to do this kind of dastardly activity.
David Kilgour was a longtime friend of Matas from years before they ever worked together on their report.
They had met at the University of Manitoba when they were in their late teens.
Well, I mean, it was David Kilgour got me involved because he was really instrumental in getting me involved. And then it turned out we were a very good team.
Over the weekend, an event was held in Toronto, Ontario, to honor his work in helping Falun Gong practitioners, the Uyghurs, and the Tamil groups, among so many more. A documentary film, The Justice Hunter, was played for a packed theater of people, showing their support and gratitude for David's work.
It's a serious film dealing with serious topics, and the work of someone who's devoted his entire life to important causes. And I don't think he's finished by any means.
After they wrote the report, they started to travel, and they had events in maybe 55 different countries over the next 2 or 3 years. And my husband died 2 years ago, and the week that he died, I started receiving emails from the Falun Gong communities around the world. And they started telling me from Finland, from Israel, from Japan, from Australia.
Standing up for injustice, however, isn't without risk.
I mean, there was a drive-by shooting in Australia, the Epoch Times office, immediately before they were hosting an event. If you don't like what I'm saying, don't threaten me. Stop organ transplant abuse in China.
Despite the risk, Matus believes we should all try to raise awareness in whatever way we can.
The reality is that in my career, when it comes to justice, hunting for mass atrocities, so far, I have seen a movement only in inches. I intend to keep on going, but I look to you in the audience and others who believe in justice to complete the journey. We need people in whatever they're doing, whether it's law or stitching pandas or serving food or pursuing justice in order for justice to prevail.
NTD News, Toronto, Canada.